My husband thinks I got pregnant to trap him. My husband and I, he's 35, I'm 32, have been married for 7 years. He lived next door, and there was an instant spark between us. Everything was like a fairy tale. I always believed that what makes our family strong is our friendship and mutual trust. But now, it seems my husband thinks otherwise. Recently, my husband learned that his friend Jeff, 34, was manipulated. Essentially, Jeff's wife, 32, deliberately stopped taking birth control pills and got pregnant just a couple of months after they started dating, only confessing after their wedding. Jeff comes from a very conservative family, and his wife knew this. He felt obligated to marry her after the pregnancy news. Unfortunately, he now feels bound to stay with her, despite all the toxicity going on, because he made a vow and intends to be there for his wife and child. For some reason, this situation really threw my husband off balance. I'm currently 4 months pregnant, and yesterday he asked if I was trying to trap him with the baby. At first I laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke, but he was completely serious and insisted on an answer. So I told him that we've been married for 7 years, and he's already stuck with me, so the baby doesn't change anything. My husband didn't like that answer. He said a baby trap has no expiration date, and my intentions were clearly dishonest since I laughed at his worries. He added that he used to trust me, but my laughter in his face completely destroyed his trust in me. I don't even know what he wanted me to say or how I was supposed to react, so I suggested we discuss it in the morning. But in the morning, I woke up, and my husband was gone. Instead, there was a vicious text from his 28-year-old brother, accusing me of getting pregnant without my husband's consent, even though it was our mutual decision. My husband disappeared, not answering calls or texts, and now I just have no idea what to do next. Update after 1 day. I wanted to quickly share updates with those who gave me advice. I read every comment and every message. I'm so grateful to you. While reading the comments, I realized that you're all right. I really did have the right to be angry in this situation. My husband insulted me, questioned our marriage, but I didn't even realize it at first. I was so confused and upset that there was simply no anger. I guess I needed time to process the absurdity of it all. I called my best friend. She's 31, who's always been my support. She came over with chocolate and was furious when I told her everything. After I vented, she called her husband, 34, and he came over. He's a family law attorney and said he'd gladly represent my interests if I decide to file for divorce. He'll prepare the divorce papers on Monday. My mother-in-law, 66, brought my husband back shortly after my friend's husband arrived. She literally dragged him out of the car and to the door. My mother-in-law said he showed up at their house late at night and declared that he's certain I'm using the baby to trap him. Fortunately, my mother-in-law is a wise woman and gave him a scolding, then brought him home to apologize to me. My pathetic husband didn't once look me in the eye the whole time, but said he's scared of becoming a father and just projected his fears onto me. He said he's not sure he's ready for such responsibility, but he'll pull himself together, as if he's some kind of hero. I just wanted to roll my eyes. I called him a coward and told him to stay at his parents' until I'm ready to talk to him. I didn't say anything about the divorce papers yet, unsure how he'd react, but he'll find out soon. I also showed my mother-in-law the message from her other son, and her face immediately darkened. I don't know what will happen next, but I feel like nothing good is coming. At the moment, I'm just exhausted and want to curl up and cry. My best friend said she'll stay over tonight, and we'll watch some silly movies. I also booked a therapist for next week, and right now I just need to rest. I'm devastated and broken that my marriage has fallen apart. Sorry for the sad ending, guys. Second update. After 9 days, thank you all for your messages and kind advice. I got so many requests to share how I'm doing that I decided to write a quick post. Overall, things have calmed down a bit. Starting with the good news, I had an ultrasound. My mother-in-law went with me, and everything is great with the little one. She's healthy. Yes, I finally found out. And it's going to be a girl. I'm over the moon with joy. My mother-in-law is a treasure. She was very touched that I invited her to the ultrasound. She's thrilled about becoming a grandmother. My mother-in-law organized a family lunch a couple of days after the ultrasound. I had some doubts, but I knew she had good intentions, and she wouldn't make the situation worse. When I arrived, my husband, his brother, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law were already there. It was pretty awkward until my mother-in-law asked if anyone had something to say. My husband's brother spoke first. He apologized for his horrible message, saying he just got carried away by emotions and wanted to support his brother. I explained how painful it was to receive such a malicious and vindictive message, especially since he knew my husband and I had been trying to conceive for almost a year. He lowered his head and mumbled something. That was probably all I heard from him that day. Then my mother-in-law looked at my husband with a very pointed expression, but he avoided everyone's gaze. In the end, she spoke up and announced that she's no longer letting him into her house. She said she's ashamed of her son's behavior, and that she'd rather make room for her granddaughter than keep a good-for-nothing around. My husband was about to say something, but then she mentioned the granddaughter and his eyes lit up. He's always dreamed of a daughter, and immediately started crying when he learned the baby's gender. He suddenly tried to touch my belly and asked if he could come home and paint the nursery. I made it very clear that he's not welcome, and that he destroyed all trust between us. I said that if I forgave him, I'd live in constant fear that he'd disappear again at any important news, and I don't need someone by my side who runs away at the first serious turn. He asked if this meant it was over, and I bluntly told him I'd already hired a lawyer. My husband started to panic a bit, but I felt absolute calm, as if a blanket had been thrown over me. I usually cry a lot, but it was like I was watching everything from the outside. My husband said it's unfair. He just panicked a little, and now I'm throwing our life away and depriving him of his daughter. My father-in-law reminded him that this is the same child he recently felt trapped by. My husband said it was a mistake. He was stressed, but my mother-in-law immediately asked, "And how do you think I felt?" She said, "Imagine you're in a vulnerable position, giving your body to grow a new person, and suddenly the person you trust most accuses you of a horrible act." My husband repeated that it was a mistake, and he just projected his fears onto me. I told my husband that I felt broken when he left, because I had dreams of a wonderful family, and it all collapsed in a moment. My husband replied that he wanted all of that with me too, that he wants our daughter, but he just let panic take over. I said that's too weak an excuse after everything he put me through, and he didn't look panicked when his mother dragged him to my doorstep to apologize. He had no decent response to that, except to keep repeating that he's ready now and wants to be with our daughter. But in all this time, no matter how much he said he wants to be with me and the child, he never truly apologized. After a very, very long conversation, the lunch ended, and my mother-in-law stood her ground. She said my husband is no longer welcome in her house. He asked again to come home with me, and I reminded him that it's my house. I bought it before our marriage, and it's supposed to be a safe space for me. That means my husband is an unwanted guest. As far as I know, he's now living in some hotel. Finally, on Friday, he was served divorce papers at work. My best friend's husband had prepared them in advance, but I wanted to wait a bit and think everything over again. Then I saw a couple of missed calls and got voicemails with sobs, where he asked if I'm really going to destroy our family. I didn't respond. He even took a tearful selfie sitting in his car. My friend laughed about it for a long time. My mother-in-law called when she found out about the papers and said I'm doing the right thing. She admitted she didn't want my marriage to end like this, or for her son to turn out so heartless. But she added that she'll always be there for me and the baby, that we're her family. She even tried to apologize for her son, but I told her there's no need. After all, his actions are his own responsibility. All weekend, my best friend was by my side, and we even went shopping for baby clothes. A bit of light in all this darkness. She's a true support, and her husband has been a huge help too. I don't know what's next, but I'm much calmer now, and confident I'm doing the right thing. If something important or interesting happens, I'll update again. For now, I just want this to be over quickly, and I hope to give birth to a wonderful girl. Wish us luck. Well, before we move to the next story, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. I personally found the story quite ambiguous. Yes, of course, the husband is awful, but raising a child alone in hopes of meeting some great guy who'll become her husband. I don't know. Maybe it's the right thing to do. Maybe that's what she should do. But if I were in the author's shoes, I probably wouldn't do it. Maybe, yes, the guy got scared, shirked responsibility. But with such an amazing mother-in-law who can keep him in line, that's at least some hope for the future. But I also understand the author, because if her husband got scared of a child who hasn't even been born yet, what will happen when the child is born? Those are very tough times for raising a kid. Let's move to the next story. I adopted my wife's 3 children from her first marriage. Now I fought with my parents because they called my brother's newborn daughter their first granddaughter. I'm 32. My wife Ava is 34. We've been together for 8 years, 5 of them married. When we started dating, she was a single mother of 3 kids, 2 daughters, now 10 and 12, and a son, now 16. I watched these kids grow up, read them bedtime stories, bathed them, got them ready for school, and went to parent-teacher meetings. I fully consider them my children, and they've called me dad for almost 6 years. My brother Ivan, 28, recently became a father. He and his fiancée, Sarah, 27, had a daughter. I adore my niece, and my kids love their cousin. Until now, my kids were the only grandchildren on my side of the family since Ava and I got together. There was never a time when my wife or kids were treated as outsiders. My brother is their uncle, my parents are their grandparents. To the kids, my relatives have always been family, and I was sure my family felt the same. We were at my brother's place, just chatting, when my parents came with gifts for my niece. Ivan laughed, seeing the toys, and said Mom and Dad would completely spoil the baby. My mom replied that since this is their first granddaughter, of course they'll spoil her. My kids were sitting in the living room with us, and I saw my youngest daughter wilt when she heard this. My son and 12-year-old daughter didn't react, but I immediately knew they were hurt too. Sarah tried to smooth things over, saying, "You probably mean the first infant granddaughter." My dad shook his head and said my niece is their first granddaughter. I didn't want the kids to keep listening to this, so I gave my son the keys and told him to take his sisters to the car. When they left, I asked my parents what the hell they were doing, talking as if my kids aren't their grandchildren. My mom replied that they can't be their grandchildren because they're not my biological children. Ava and I were planning to host Thanksgiving at our place, but I told my parents that if they don't consider my kids their family, they can host their own dinner with their real family, and I'll celebrate with my family. I left without hearing them out, and Ava and I told the kids again that they'll always be our children, and I'll always be their dad, regardless of DNA. My brother is now mad at me because he thinks I overreacted, and that I should try to understand our parents' perspective. My mom sent a message saying that she and Dad love my kids, but they're still not their grandchildren, and they hope we can accept that because she doesn't want this to ruin my niece's first Thanksgiving. I didn't respond. I said what I thought, but I'm still worried. Did I really go too far? Edited. I officially adopted all 3 kids about 4 years ago, so they're not just stepchildren to my parents. Even if I hadn't formally adopted them, they'd still be my children in my eyes. My wife's parents have no contact with the kids, as they barely communicate. Their biological father is also not involved in their lives, nor is his family. He lost his parental rights before Ava and I started dating. The 10-year-old daughter has never seen him, the 12-year-old doesn't remember him, and the 16-year-old son wants nothing to do with him. By the way, it was my parents who wanted the kids to call them Grandma and Grandpa. I didn't force them to do it. So, before we move to the update, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this story too. I think it's actually a pretty complicated situation. I believe most people would say, "What do you mean complicated? They're grandchildren. What's the deal?" Grandma and Grandpa said something stupid, and they're actually wrong. But how I'd personally handle this situation, I'd probably call these kids my grandchildren, but in reality, I probably wouldn't consider them as such. I'd probably love them, be understanding of the whole situation, but their blood wouldn't be mine. And so, I think they wouldn't really be my grandchildren, unfortunately. Because if you think about it, if the author splits up with his wife, where would these kids end up? Or rather, who would they be to him? Maybe they'd still be his children. Maybe he'd keep in touch with them. Or maybe not. And what about Grandma and Grandpa? Would they still be grandchildren in that situation? If they're truly blood grandchildren, then yes, 100% they'd remain so, but if not, there are options. But I personally wouldn't say that if I were in Grandma and Grandpa's shoes. Let's move to the update. Update. Hi. I decided to write an update because it seems the situation won't change anytime soon. Ava and I talked to each child separately and asked what they want to do for Thanksgiving, whether they want to see my parents or even talk to them. My son and older daughter made it clear they're mainly angry because Grandma and Grandpa hurt their younger sister's feelings. And they said that if my parents apologize to her and try to fix it somehow, they might be willing to talk to them. But the 10-year-old daughter is taking it the hardest of all. For her, my parents are the only grandparents she's ever known. This has really shaken her. Ava and I explained that it's not her fault. She didn't do anything wrong, and she's our daughter. She said she doesn't want to talk to them but asked me to tell them she's not angry at them. She's just hurt. I called my dad and told him how much his and mom's words hurt the kids. I said it would be important to me if they apologized to the kids for ignoring their feelings. My dad replied that they didn't mean to hurt anyone, but they can't change the fact that these aren't their grandchildren, and the kids shouldn't react so strongly to the truth. I hung up. I understand that I can't force them to consider my kids their grandchildren, but the fact that they both completely disregard how much they hurt the kids only makes the situation worse. I wrote to my brother and apologized if he feels caught between two fires. But I'm a parent, and my kids are my priority. I'm not going to apologize for protecting them. It seems Sarah talked to him, because he apologized and said he'd like his daughter to celebrate Thanksgiving with her uncle and cousins. I separately thanked Sarah for trying to save the situation and giving my parents a chance to make it right. She's just wonderful. I adore her. Thanksgiving will be at our house, but without my parents. It's sad, but as I said, my kids are my priority, and I won't let them sit at a table with people who can't show them even a moment of empathy and basic kindness. Well, that's the end of the story. All that's left is to feel sorry for the author. Really, as I said, Grandma and Grandpa could have just called them their grandchildren. It wouldn't have cost them anything. What do you think? Write your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Check out our previous videos, which you'll see right here. And good luck to you.